Has Mr. Quinn joined at all? Let's see. Are we live now? Let me look because we have someone that was, I don't see him on. Oh, he has to, yeah.
All right, are we good to go? Recording?
Do we want to test to see if Mr. Quinn can hear us?
Yes.
I'm good. Welcome.
Happy to hear you. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, hope everyone had their coffee. We will,
Yeah, pretty question of the day.
all right, to bring the meeting to order, start with housekeeping comments. So good morning. My name is Jason Aspel. I'm Deputy Executive Officer of the Engineering and Permitting Division at South Coast AQMD. Thank you for joining our hybrid permit streamlining task force subcommittee meeting. We will do our best to make this meeting run smoothly, and we ask for your patience as we navigate this together. There are 3 ways you can participate: in person using Zoom on your computer or smartphone, and the teleconference or call-in option. During the meeting, all participants except for panelists will be placed on mute. That means you will not be able to mute or unmute your lines manually until called upon. We will be pausing throughout the presentation and welcome your questions or comments throughout the meeting. This forum is intended to facilitate discussion and information sharing. For those of you in the room with us, please grab our attention and raise your hand if you would like to speak or ask a question during the public comment period. You'll be called when it is your turn to speak. And please don't think we have a microphone, but you can come up and be heard. And so people on Zoom can hear and participate in the discussion. For those on Zoom, please click the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. The button looks like a raised hand. For those of you on the teleconference line, please dial *9 to signal that you would like to comment. Once you hear your name called, we will unmute your line automatically. If you didn't get a chance to ask a question or would like to have a further discussion, staff contact information will be provided at the end of the presentation. Since we are not going through attendee introductions, we also ask that you identify yourself and your affiliation or organization before initially speaking. And if you do have a moment, please identify your organization on your Zoom screen name to help us. We do wish to facilitate a good discussion here. However, it becomes necessary, we may limit public comment to 3 minutes for all agenda items and 3 minutes for general public comment. But for right now, we will not utilize the timer unless time becomes a factor. Before we get to the presentation, I want to review some meeting guidelines. Profanity or discriminatory comments are prohibited. Disorderly, unruly, or aggressive behavior that infringes upon the rights of others or disrupts the meeting is also prohibited. And any violation of these guidelines can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. For those of you in the room, if we do need to evacuate, there are 3 exits at either 2 exits at one end, 1 exit on the other end. In an emergency, follow the lead of staff and make your way to the muster points in the parking lot. And restrooms are located through this door over here and to your right. And if you need any other assistance during your visit, please do not hesitate to ask staff. That concludes our housekeeping remarks. I will hand it over for a roll call.
Bill Lamar,
Here.
Bill Pierce,
Here.
Bill Quinn,
Here.
David Rothbart,
Here.
Judy York.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you, everyone. Again, I know it takes time out of your day to participate in this. Helps to have a good participation here. We do have some good items today. We are actually gonna start off with an action item. I don't think we've ever had an action item in the task force, but we'll those that are also on our back SRC will be familiar with this, but we'll go through it. But this item is to have a vote to allow Brown Act teleconferencing option under SB 707. So this does not apply to our board meetings. It also does not apply to elected officials in official capacity, and they can still participate in committees remotely using traditional Brown Act procedures, meaning the noticing 72-hour notice. But non-elected committee members will be able to attend committees remotely without following the what we know as those traditional Brown Act noticing requirements. And that also includes posting at a remote location and posting the remote location address on the agenda. So on in the May board meeting, they made findings to allow eligible bodies such as this task force to teleconference under these provisions. So before we implement the new procedure on this task force and other committees, the body must approve the use of teleconferencing by a majority vote. And to use this new procedure, the committee or body has to designate a location where members of the public may physically attend, observe, hear, and participate in the meeting. And that will continue to be district headquarters, and more likely than not this room at CC8. And then a task force member can utilize that utilizes these provisions must visibly appear on camera during the open portion of the meetings, unless the appearance would be technologically infeasible. The existing provisions under Brown Act are still there, such as Mr. Quinn is utilizing today. So we'll work with you if this does passes, but finish off with if the member does not appear on camera due to challenges with internet connectivity, you must announce the reason for the non-appearance prior to turning your camera off. With that, is there any questions from the task force before we get to motions? Before I vote, I do want to open it if there's any public comment on these items before the vote, or motion and then vote. Okay, seeing none, I will ask if there is a motion.
Second.
Second and second. So if we can go through the vote. Unfortunately, I don't have my,
Just have a comment.
yes.
I haven't seen the minutes of our last back scientific review committee meeting. where this subject was brought up then,
Okay,
but I would certainly be in favor of whatever we did in that committee meeting on this subject to be applied here, so. I know you were there, David was there.
I was there.
Judy.
in terms of the result?
Well, we had a lot of questions. I think I had a number of questions and everything, just for clarification purposes, but that seemed to be just fine with everybody.
Yeah, I think so. If, before we, go to vote, but if this does pass, theoretically, if a task force member was at an unnoticed location, they would be able to join this meeting after, if this was approved. And then we will still do the same attendance polls, planning leading up to the meeting. And I think we would look to each of you if you want, as we do now, if you want to attend in person or remotely, or provide a remote location for the public. Those are all available to task force members. All right. All right. With that, I'll go to a vote, and I'll just go on screen first. Bill Quinn.
Approve or support.
All right. Bill Lamar.
Lamar, aye.
All right. Judy York.
Aye.
David Rothbart.
Yes.
And the third Bill Pierce.
Yes.
Next. The motion passes. All right. Thank you very much. And we can go to it, and we'll work on some other procedural things because I jumped the gun there. All right, getting to the main part of our agenda. We have three main items we'll be presenting today. We have some movement on our certified permitting professional program and things we've developed and want to get task force feedback before moving forward. Also have last time we met, there were questions on the expedited permit program. Also, a week before that, task force member David Rothbart had some various questions or recommendations for an agenda item on the expedited permit program. So we will have a presentation and discussion on that program. And then lastly is primarily a discussion item, but we want to develop a new permitting work plan and develop priorities. So we will be going through that as our last agenda item. And then we do have some information to present in other businesses very quickly. So with that, I will hand off to David Ono, who will present the certified permitting professional program.
All right, good morning, everyone. Next slide. So in prior meetings, we kind of gave an overview of the CPP program and some ideas in terms of streamlining. One of the major things that came up was having the program set up so that the CPP applicants can get feedback on the quality of their submittals. So we're referring to that as a CPP checklist. It's a quality assurance kind of review checklist. And we've set that up in conjunction or in cooperation with our consultant, William Walters, to help put that together. I will mention that Greg Jacobson, our supervising engineer, was also instrumental in helping put this together. He's enjoying paternity leave. He just had a baby boy, so that's why he's not here today. So I'm covering that for him. Going back, so on the checklist, again, it's meant to be used as a feedback mechanism where we receive CPP applications, we'll review it, look for things that we'll have a standards to review and identify any areas that we see for improvement. And depending on how many we find, it could be a pass through, or it could be we need to give you we give back the checklist with the evaluation, what we call a rating. As it comes out, it'll be more standardized. At some point, we're determined what level we think is acceptable to go straight to a senior engineer. We're looking for feedback on the concept, the categories, and we're also looking to see if any CPP holders might want to participate in trying to put their applications up for as part of our initial review. We also plan to integrate this with our paperless processing. So one of the other things right now is the ability to track incoming CPP applications. At the moment, there isn't a strong mechanism for doing so. And because we don't have the feedback mechanism, there's less incentive for CPP holders to want to put in. So we think by adding this component, it's going to provide a mechanism for feedback and encourage people to want to submit as CPPs. So I have it on my computer because I sometimes can't read that. So, all right. So as I mentioned, for use of it, we think that it could have a dual purpose. We have a lot of new engineers. We have a lot of turnover recently with the retirements in the last few years. And so we're going to plan to use this as a quality assurance checklist for new engineers also to evaluate the quality of their applications. So we'll have, a bunch of applications that we can test checklists out on. But again, the primary purpose as a CPP checklist is to review applications coming from the CPP, fill them out, identify areas of for potential improvement. Maybe there could be some that are really big shortcomings, and then that would lead to additional action in terms of maybe follow-up meetings with the CPP applicant. But in terms of running it, we say beyond the CPP program, it's really internal use and evaluating in that. We think that's going to really help improve the checklist, but also be used eventually as a training guide for our new engineers coming on board. And in general, with those expectations, it should translate to faster processing, because the expectations will be upfront. Okay. So in terms of what we're putting on the checklist, add some general information just to identify the application and the applicant. And then when we go through the various sections, you'll see later on how it's broken down. But as issues are identified, it's almost akin to like an audit or review of the application. So as issues are identified, they be in one of three different categories. One, it could be something that's a shortcoming on the administrative side. Maybe something minor was missing in the information. Those things are readily correctable and probably don't have much impact on processing. But in some cases, when we receive them, the district staff could fill those in if they're something like very minor missing. But if it's something that is correctable, that's not administrative, that's more technical in nature. An engineer may still be able to do that, but it's going to slow things down. So that's a little bit higher than like a general administrative piece. Some of the administrative pieces could be things that are missing, but maybe optional, but still fill them out so that, we can flag that as an administrative issue. If it's a technical information that's needed to do the evaluation, some are more easily obtainable than others. So we make that distinction. It's major if it halts the processing that you definitely need to follow with the applicant. This could be in either the forms or in the evaluation, because the CPP application should include the evaluation component. So we were reviewing not just the forms, but also the forms and the evaluation. Some evaluation things may be missing some minor stuff, right? And then if it's a major deficiency, we'll flag it that way. And as we go through with applications through the process, we'll have better ideas of how we might want to refine those definitions. Because as you'll see, depending on how many issues are identified, that results in the ultimate rating that we'll be giving. So we'll end up with an overall rating. And depending on what that is, that would drive the level of feedback that comes about from it. Sometimes feedback could just be a return of the form with your rating number associated with it. In some cases, it may be, well, we might need to have a follow-up meeting with the applicant. And internally, it'd be a come and see me from the senior engineer saying, okay, I need to discuss some of these things. Some things like, please correct these in the future. Some could be, we need to have a discussion. And we're trying to see how that plays in with reviewing the CPP applications, if it has the same kind of setup where we need maybe suggest a follow-up meeting or as an option follow-up meeting in case you're the return, they have questions on it, it's an option for it. In some cases, it may be so minor that, okay, I made a mistake, I won't make that in the future. And they still get the filled out checklist as a feedback mechanism. And then there's in the checklist, there's a space for like general comments that would feed forward back to the CPP that might not be picked up in the identification of the issues. Could be like a broader theme that maybe missing or want to emphasize, or hey, we just want to make sure that you're aware of this. It looks like maybe you missed something, and maybe you didn't. Maybe it's just the phrasing. So they might put that in the comments. And same thing internally. We said internally, we may it may, as the application comes in, it will pass on to the senior, and then the person doing the evaluation may note something that they would just want the senior to know. So that's just a general section that will be in there. Okay, this is just to show you what the form looks like. It's now the link that was to the Permit Streamlining Task Force webpage. The attachments are there available now, so you should be able to get them from that link. It's basically 4 pages. The third page is more examples and instructions, and we'll go with the stuff that is on here in red. We'll be highlighting and discussing those in a more detail. Okay. So the general information, again, that's just basic information to help track the application and who submitted it and some important dates. Okay. Going forward, the way it's set up, again, there's categories called review items for different parts of the evaluation and the forms, and a tracking for the issues found. Now, they're just boxes here because they're meant to be numbers. So if on this first section, there's 3 things that were identified, administrative nature, we put a 3 there. And then it could be a dash or a 0 for minor or major.
And then the comments specifically would be 1, 2, 3 in those comment fields
Right.
below.
Right, and end up in the next section. We just want to note here that for the few that we tried to run through, these were internal application submittals. We noted that the most common, I'll say, finding is missing information, basically. Whether it's completely missing or it's just missing in context. Because it could be a technical thing that maybe the applicant or person doing the evaluation might not have thought that there was a key piece. Sometimes it's just because they forgot, but sometimes it's because maybe technically they didn't understand that information was important. But it's basically missing things, not necessarily knowing the information is important and calculating it incorrectly.
Right.
It's just missing completely.
Having faced this a million times, there's some missing things that are nice to have, but the manufacturer didn't give it to us, so we need to proceed without it, or, well, no, we actually really need to have stack height and we can't proceed without it. So do you rank those, or will those be ranked? I guess you could find
yeah.
a million missing items
Right.
in any application. Okay, but that doesn't mean you can't process that one.
Right. We're trying to use the general, again, in terms of the administrative minor and major, if it holds
Okay.
the ability to do the evaluation. If
Then,
to your point,
Yeah.
like maybe it's nice to have, maybe that's a minor, it shouldn't be considered major because you didn't necessarily need it to process. But it's something that, it leaves it open
Yeah.
question, right? So it could be something that's missing. And then the feedback I would say in the application is like, the CPP should know that some of my thing is important and then make a note like we didn't include this because of this reason.
Right. There are applications we have to proceed because we're not gonna get that, no, we want it.
Yeah.
So
It's a big note.
We'll have to assume some value or something, yeah.
I just realized I'm switching my screen and not that one screen, so apologies. So you can read it, application, general information, form completeness, and remember, this is not an evaluation of whether or not it's deemed complete. It's an evaluation of the CPP package, which includes completeness, but also the details behind the evaluation that's submitted. Okay. There's a couple that may be not applicable for certain types of permanent equipment or applications. So we put a box there where we thought was appropriate, just so there wouldn't be any blanks. And then continuing on, you have other breakdowns. And we try to do it so that it's easier to get the feedback and easier for a CPP to know, like, okay, I did a pretty good job on these sections, but these, okay, it's easier for me to beef up on those sections. And again, we're looking for feedback. If those sections you think could benefit from making subcategories, or maybe you think some from they should be combined, it's really the same type of issue. We're looking for feedback across the board. Okay, now we will end up with an overall rating, and it's based on the number of issues that are determined when going through the checklist. So as the issues are identified, then to Judy's point, and the area below, we would mark them, number them 1, 2, 3, as many issues are identified, and then I describe what the issue is. If for this particular review, then find any, we want to put an NA so that we know that it was looked. And again, this and the general section at the end of it to capture any things that might not be picked up by looking at the issue directly. Now, we're calling it a rating, but I see we left grading on one of them still. It's really just a score. That's what we went with the number, and we're not really sure exactly like what's good or bad or like, good or bad. Like you can probably like the extremes are probably going to be obvious, but things in between, there's going to be some gradient. So we want to be as objective and upfront as possible. So we're just going 0 through 5 instead of A, B, C, D, E, F or whatever. And as we receive more, we'll have a better idea of where a good cut line is, or maybe we need more, more gradient if we want to differentiate between the different actions that might come up. So we just went with this 0 to 5. 0 means that there's a major issue when we really can't proceed. So it wouldn't be good for a CPP to submit something with a significant issue in the evaluation and their application. If it's a 5, then that means that it goes straight to the senior. So we're hoping to eventually get to that point. But we'll have to evaluate a few and then see how it shakes out. And again, we put these as proxies to try to capture the level of detail and the level of feedback. So our intent is that if you get a grade of 5, what do we do in terms of feedback? If it's 4, that's going to trigger a different feedback. And also internally, what is a 3 versus a 4 versus a 2 mean in terms of feedback and, reviewing of the new engineer's progress towards getting to higher levels.
So the number designation 5, 4, 3, whatever it is a determination by the CPP.
No, by the evaluator. So the CPP will submit their application. Someone on staff will review it using the checklist, review the evaluation and the application.
And assign a number to it.
As they go through it, they will mark areas where they found them to be, I'll say, deficient. Those are just items that are observed that are maybe missing, either administrative issue or minor issue, major issue. And then, use the scorecard, so to speak, add up the numbers and see where it falls. And then if you see here, so like a 3 says 4 minor issues and 3 or fewer review items. Okay. So it's just a straight counting.
Oh,
This is just our proxy, maybe that number should be higher or lower. We'll have a better feel. Right now, we're grading on a curve, so to speak. So there's really no, we don't say, again, 5 and 0 are probably going to be, that 5 is really good, 0 is going to be bad. In between, we're not really sure what the cut line is. So we put these numbers up there to test it out. And maybe that number should change, maybe it should change depending on how, when we evaluate, we'll identify things and issues. And then there's the whole part. It's like, is that 1 issue or should that be 2 issues? It's the same issue, it's 1 issue. I can see those discussions coming about. So try to avoid that. We're, like I said, we're kind of grading on a curve to start. We'll see where the applications fall. And then you look at overall and say, past the general straight face test, this is application, a good one, because you gave it a 4. And so, well, it really shouldn't be a 4. Say, well, okay, maybe we need to change our criteria.
Well, I guess my point is that if this isn't, or maybe it is, arbitrary or subjective on the part of the staff in these evaluations, I was hoping it would be based on a number of issues. If there were 4 minor issues or major issues, then that would be a 3.
Mhm.
That would be a 3. So you could tie the 2 together.
Yeah.
And know what that grade is. But I guess I'm hearing you say that that's not necessarily true all the time.
No, I'm saying that that's what we're shooting for, but we don't know if 4 minor issues should be a 3. Maybe 4 minor issues is bad and we shouldn't accept it. Well, like I said, we're going to run through a whole bunch of applications. We'll end up with a bunch of scores associated with them. Then we have to take a step back and say, really, this application of that quality, does it make sense for us to rate 4 minor issues as a 3? And what does a 3 mean? Does a 3 mean, the CPP comes in and we have to have a discussion, or is there, at some point, for continuing education purposes, we want to have some kind of tie-in, and that came out of the streamlining efforts for CPP, whether or not we want to have continuing education, and then should there be, required continuing education. If we go down the path where we think it should be required.
Yeah. Does this discussion take place internally or in the presence of the permittee?
Yeah.
You want to, I think we have 2 more slides
Yeah.
after this, and then we could just open it up
Oh.
for full discussion.
Okay.
There'll be more, I think it's a couple, right?
Yeah.
Let's finish and then we'll get into it, because this is the discussion and feedback we want as
Mhm.
we develop and get into these issues. So, just.
Yeah. Maybe to kind of hopefully wrap it up a little bit. It's going to be a work in progress. Right? We're grading on the curve initially. Want to get to it to the point where it's a lot more well-defined so that the expectations are clear on both ends. And like I said, these are just proxy in terms of the rating scale. And we also want to open it up to, people to participate. And as we get more examples, I think it'll shake out. There should be some clear delineations of where the things are triggered. And again, we're looking for feedback on what those triggers should be and what those follow-up actions should be. Okay, so some general examples. 5 is, no issues. We'll go down. Is some things in terms of, we reviewed some of our internal applications, and these are the things that came up, in terms of the result being a 4. What was the things that were observed there? There's no copy of the CP was not included, but they included the application number. This would be like we want to identify you as the CP is a certified equipment permit that's tied to a registration permit. So we want to have a copy of that. We could look it up, right? But it's better if they include that in their application. So it's an administrative issue, not, not a showstopper, but not a perfect 5. 3 rating, there were some minor issues missing, the PS form. Maybe in some cases, the 400 PS form is not as important for other emission sources. And so, if it's marked as a minor issue, that means that, maybe the engineer could have had more time to determine that, but again, it's better the CPP applicant includes that information. And maybe the SRI evaluation was missing some information. It was somewhat incomplete. And draft permit conditions. This is, I think, more to Judy's point. Some things may be nice to have versus how far do you want to go on it. And to the point where maybe a CDP would identify the range and say, this is what we prefer. We're ruling these out in our evaluation for these reasons. Then it's not an open-ended question. And then going down and for things that had more observations, maybe some regular team evaluations were off, draft permit conditions were missing things. All these were all minor issues. And I think maybe to Bill Lamar's point, like understanding the difference between a minor and a major issue might be the point in terms of like, hey, it should be an objective standard. We think it, in our opinion, the difference should be obvious when you review them. As we get more evaluations that come in, and we probably want to vet them to make sure there's no confidential information, but use those as examples to say, if you miss this piece, it's a major issue. Okay. Now, Reagan put here 6 minor issues, so then that triggers the 1 rating. So, well, as we go through, I think we didn't find any major issues when we did our test, so we couldn't use that as an example. But as we get newer engineers, we probably will get some of those, and we don't want to necessarily make up applications that have major issues in them. So more than likely, at least early on, it'll be the lower rating because we have too many minor issues showing up. Okay. All right, so we're looking for feedback on the form. We're like within 30 days. We're also looking to see if any CPP applicants want to, try the system of their own. We'll be using it and expanding, internally on applications that were processed prior to going to the chief engineer to see how the checklist works there. And then, following a review of those, we'll look at lessons learned and try to incorporate the feedback that you may be providing.
So now we will open it up for a task force discussion. We'll go left to right. Judy, you want to comment?
Okay. I have a number of thoughts whirling in my mind. First is, in this process, is there envisioned already any discussions between the permit engineer and the CPP before the point that they assign the grade, the scores? Is there any back and forth?
Oh, like a preliminary review?
Any kind of discussion? Or are you simply assuming the permit engineer is going to look at the paper and then give their numbers?
Yeah, I think initially we would want to do, while we're doing this trial review, I think there's opportunities for that. But once it's implemented, I don't envision it that way. That would take a lot longer. So I envisioned that they were submitted. The feedback back and forth would come when we conclude it, we complete the paperwork, send it back as feedback. I think that's also part of the discussion, whether or not we want to do that prior to permit issuance or at the end after the permit's issued. Again, keeping mindful of the time component, because if the permit has not been issued yet, it's still pending, still in the inventory / backlog. So given the feedback, then there could be like extended discussions and back and forth there. That's time not spent processing the permit. So we'll look to see, feedback from you guys to see which is
Okay.
the better approach.
So-
But our thought is that we would want to not hold up the process and the permit.
Right, and I think that one thing that you all have in your mind, and I suppose it's our culture and our age, of we just look what's on the computer, we know everything then, and we're just gonna move, give it a grade and move on. But having permitted so many things and having experienced the permit engineer looks at the words on the page and may not understand what the thinking is or how we got there, because I could see one of the important items here, and you even highlighted it, is permit conditions. So say we propose permit conditions, say we have everything else and we propose permit conditions. If there's just a lack of being on the same page with why are the conditions the way they are, that could be 8 minors by itself. And so then now the whole thing is derailed because there was no discussion about why is it, or say there are, 3 minor administrative things. Does it then get taken off the board, or does the permit engineer just reach out to the CPP? You've got the phone number and the email. Hey, I see these 3 things. Can we just get them resolved so it can move on?
Oh, yeah, I think they would be resolved and moved on.
Yeah, so I think, I really think but go back to your scoring, at the very end, the scoring. I think with that scoring, you would want a next action that goes with it. So if you put, the first one is a 5, okay, it's perfect, ready to go to the senior engineer, that's the next action, is right there with that element. The next one, only administrative issues. Okay, now we're dead in the water, or what's the next action?
No.
So
It's-
I think we should list here, what's the next
Oh,
action?
okay.
Permit engineer to contact
Yeah,
CPP
sure.
resolve, right?
I want to get back to the core of this. It's to
Yeah.
get feedback to the CPP so they understand the quality,
Sure, but
not to dictate the permit process.
yeah,
And I think where the feedback is generated, maybe in the beginning of like, we just want a robust submittal that we can work on.
you're right, but that might be very frustrating to someone who goes, okay, you identified what you think are 3 minor things, but I have an answer for each of those. Why didn't you ask me?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I am a little concerned that we're thinking we're just gonna look in our black box and not talk to the person and not,
Well, the permit process still goes. There's still
Right, but
constant
there's
feedback,
so much,
but there's
so many variables.
and I guess the question is, what's the recommendation of how a CPP would get feedback at what stage in the process? Because there are different items there is the submittal, and
Yeah.
no one's fully evaluated that, and there may be more issues as you get into permit processing at the end.
Well, I guess I'm asking, maybe I'm asking the bigger picture, how is this checklist gonna be used? Is it just gonna get, oh, okay, oh, I see 3, 4, 5, boop, back. And that's
So I
just
think-
gonna.
Well, maybe another thing to think about is if you are at a 5, right? That means it's moving straight to senior engineer.
Yeah.
So
But I could take any application from anyone, even prepared by South Coast, and I can find a number of items that will be missing. Should you, will tell me the same, right? It's an opinion.
Yeah.
but it's also maybe, if you think about it in the sense of it is setting the expectation of timelines. So if you had a 5, it's going straight to engineer review. So you're not going to have the back and forth with the engineer. You are going to be going straight to review. And now the senior will be contacting you with questions, comments. I don't like these. If you are at a 4, the time you're going to be spending with an engineer to get it right will likely be less than if you were at a 2.
Right.
Now, the 0 probably it's not.
Right, we're gonna go to
Issues.
the.
We're outta here.
I totally 100%.
So I
agree with
think,
that.
so it's not so much we're gonna use that to say you're out of here. It's more of setting the expectation on how much back and forth are we gonna
Right.
have, right? So if we're upfront to say, and maybe it is grading it, giving that to you so
Right.
that you can see, and then the expectation of like, okay, well, this isn't gonna be quick because we have quite a
Right.
few issues to discuss, or, yeah, this is going to a senior engineer, we're done.
So if it's the expectation then, so 4 only administrative issues expected to be resolved within 30 minutes with CPP, right? Okay. What's the next one? Less than 4 total minor issues combined in 3 or fewer. Okay, if it takes us more than an hour, it's gonna get kicked out. If we can talk and resolve it in an hour, boop, we're done and
Yeah,
we moves on.
and,
I guess I'm,
that's good criteria to,
Right.
you know, to add in terms of feedback, because we're looking to define minor and major. We're saying it can be, you know, addressed by the engineer, but the time for like, oh, okay, within so much time, you're
right.
not strict, because then we don't want to be stop watching it. But that's a good,
I mean,
give a
it's,
range.
I think
so
that's the
get
way
a-
we need to think
helps
in terms of
understand.
how complex is this to resolve or not, right?
Right. I see, well,
Okay.
let's see if I remember now, I had 3 in my head. 3 reasons for this. One is it gives us a mechanism to provide feedback.
Yeah,
So it's formal, it's standardized,
Yes.
right? So that's one thing.
that's
Okay.
good.
The second part, let me see, I should have wrote it down. Conversation was long, sorry. The other part is having maybe an idea of how, in terms of the quality of the submittal, translates to how long it's going to take, right? 5 should be quicker than a 4. And then over time, as you see at some point, we might want to include like an average rating or some way to make that transparent to people who want to use the CPPs. It's like this CPP is consistently delivering, you know, 4s or maybe some 5s.
Right.
I like that. I'm going to have assurances that it's going to get turned around quicker, right? So that is going to play a part. In terms of how is it going to be used? If we advertise the ratings, and the ratings we're going to assume are, you know, are solid, they're representative, then someone who wants to use the CPP, they're going to have a better idea, like this person's going to get it to me faster. And then the third part was the level of feedback, whether or not there's something that drives like a need for continuing education, or additional delineation of expertise in certain areas where maybe this, again, certain subject areas is a 4+, I'll say, but other areas not quite there yet, right? So that
But I think
might drive that action. So
You're-
Do you want to add
you're
one?
100% right, but I think you're making the assumption that the permit engineer really, really, really understands and has a very high level of understanding based on the paper, which I don't think that's realistic. So I just want to.
I do
put that out
want
there.
to add one to that. There is an assessment of our own system of if we rate something as a 5 and it still has long time, unexplained timelines of that's something we need to investigate because maybe that is a staffing issue.
I think we should, I guess maybe I'm saying we shouldn't be afraid of the time savings that will occur if there is a conversation between the permit engineer and the CPP who's prepared the thing. Even if the permit engineer goes, yeah, this all looks great. There's, you know, it would be good to have that conversation to make sure, well, I did these permit conditions, but you know, you know,
And that could
I
drive
just-
additional delineation.
yeah.
As, you know, we don't expect the checklist to be static. We want to continually improve it.
Yeah, and we understand it's not as if, maybe we group items of you gave the permit condition item, but if something is a trickle down, waterfall effect of not to count each one of those against CPP as you have all these problems, it's like,
Right.
well, that is isolated to one topic. So keep it moving down the line. David?
Appreciate the subject. I think it's really good to have some feedback, go back. If you're finding the applications aren't complete and it's bogging down the process, is a good response. As far as what a CPP would get in this, I'm going to hire someone who's CPP. At least hearing you're on a grading system, it kind of goes back to school. My kids are in school and it's like, okay, they get a C. Well, are you going to have the situation where it's subjective, like Judy's subjective examples, where you're going to have someone come in, the CPP comes in and says, well, wait a minute, I didn't deserve, a 3, I deserved a 4. And how long is it going to take? The whole point of this is to get the permits going faster. So how much time are you spending with the rating system? And then if the rating system is subjective, then it may even get more complicated. So I'm just curious, have you thought about kind of the benefit versus the effort?
So this is intended to require minimal staff time to go through and tally these. In the back of my mind, one of my notes is the disagreement scenario and how we handle them. So, open to those comments of, maybe it is widening out the ranges here. I don't know how that would work, but to try and forecast.
When are comments due? Formal comments?
I don't think we put it.
Yeah, we're at 30 days.
Yeah, next
Yeah.
30 days. I mean,
July 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
we're open, but yeah.
And I know you're sensitive to, staff time and everything else, but as far as the CPP's perspective, I'm hiring a CPP. What would I expect the speed of processing to be using a CPP versus not? If it's just like, a month a day or something like that, then why would you go through this process? What's the upside? Do you have any idea what that could save?
Yeah, I would say we've seen from CPP submittals a whole range from probably, I don't know if we saw 5s, but higher end, and I would say to 0s as well within the last year. So it really depends on the CPP and then working with them and then making sure they know of, if they are on the lower end, what they need to do to get it right on their next submittal. So hopefully this self-corrects and everyone gets up to speed. And
But I'm just
we're all
saying,
seeing these move through.
you get the perfect application versus something that needs improvement. How much faster would the process take? Just, just in
Because I
general.
think you're going to say what I'm going to say on this.
Yeah, I was just thinking that right now our focus has been on looking at CPP apps, but maybe we need a control set, which is the non-CPP submitted apps. So we can have a comparison.
I'm just looking at it, like, if you want to motivate people
Right.
to hire a CPP,
Yeah,
so you get better applications.
Yeah, look at
What's
the
the
full data.
upside to hire someone more expensive?
Right, we look
Grade
at,
5.
we look at the non-CPPs, look at those timelines, look at the CPPs of certain qualities and their timelines. That way you can compare the two. We'll have to maybe make sure that the applications have similar complexity, location, et cetera. But as we build up more data, I think,
Yeah,
that
I
should be helpful. That
I
should
think
show.
we have to build out our sample set. And this is a test phase, but ultimately what we envision is when you have these identified great applications, grade 5, is it jumps to senior. And then that is on the order of probably weeks to months.
And that's a significant
Yes.
improvement in processing time, because I am seeing at a higher level, that's where permits are bogging down quite a bit. So it seems like staff's doing a great job pushing things through. Where is the bottleneck? Is this curing one of the bottlenecks we've identified? I'm not sure.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Keep moving down, Bill Pierce.
So just a comment, I was curious, I mean, we tend to, some of the time we do use CPP to complete applications that are submitted, but then usually our process, we don't allow CPPs to engage with South Coast. It all has to flow through Boeing. And so does that mean that they're just not part of this evaluation then, or the applications are completed by a CPP, but then we don't allow information to flow?
Good question. I think that's also one of the things we've been talking about is when does a CPP application enter the process? Which CPPs are getting, have their submittals rated? Sometimes we see 2 CPPs on a similar one. How does that work? We're open to it because I think we're are open to feedback, because I think that's the first thing is like, okay, we got to identify these when they come in the door, and how do we do that? And if something wants to be included as part of that, is that the facility? Is it the CPP identifying something on, just by putting their number in a field as the preparer?
Yeah, I mean, they identify as the preparer, and so they have, but then all communications have to come through Boeing.
But I think that's made clear through the contracting.
Right,
You know,
it is.
you would simply instruct your CPP, you don't talk to the agency without me. All right, so then they, if they're contacted by the air district, they would go, I mean, we've had this, right? We do this. We say, hey, we'll need Bill on the phone with us. Okay.
But no, I'm just curious about how those would play out.
I don't think though the South Coast can be the gatekeeper of that. I think that's gotta be contractual between.
Well, but you
Boeing
say
and-
contractual, but we're specific in our application when we submit it. That information, I mean, that we're the contact.
And we may
So-
not have insight into that if it is on the contractual side,
Yeah.
but what we see the CPP number.
Yeah, we wouldn't expect you to be, but we're just curious. I mean,
No, something.
and we don't want our applications to get brought into a process that we don't have.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just when we submit, I mean, it's specifically, it has the Boeing contact information as to who to contact. But the preparer is sometimes a CPP.
Okay, so yeah.
And so we're just curious if they would still be part of the system. And then
Yeah,
other,
could be, but- Go ahead and then we'll go.
yeah, other item is, so we tend to be a little bit more aggressive in our permit applications. And some of it involves policy considerations along those lines. And so I guess at the end of the day, we're just curious if those would arise to be identified as issues, or is this honest difference of opinion and eventually gets sorted out, sometimes in our favor, sometimes district. But
Yeah, I don't know that those types of things are part of the quality of the evaluation and the package. So,
and that's the question I was curious about, just how that wouldn't be identified as an issue
yeah.
per se, or
maybe it might, right?
Or might.
Because if
It
it
might.
was a permit condition or something that you put in contrary to how we do things, right, then it would get flagged as, this is wrong or
Well,
not consistent. So
and-
then maybe
yeah.
that is something that we should look out for
Yeah.
to see if there is a better way to allow, that kind of like, okay, I know it's this and just for you to be able to flag it. So I think that is a good consideration.
I mean, one of the issues we have off and on is that, so we'll run a tier 3 evaluation. And so we're borderline. I mean, but our calcs show we're right below. District comes back, they're right above. And so then there's some discussions about all the factors that played into each evaluation. But then ultimately, then we'll decide we're going to run a tier 4. But the original app, we're not willing to spend the 10-15K to just have a tier 4 evaluation. And so, again, I'm just looking at it more of things that might be identified as an issue versus the
gray
and again, we're not CPP, so we're not, everything we submit is.
I know Bill Quinn has his hand raised, but I think Judy had a question directly related to.
Yeah, so he touches on a really important issue, and I think I brought it up before in that the CPP has to be able to say, yes, just like a PE stamp, yes, I'm stamping this one, or I'm not stamping this one, because, right, we are faced with, sometimes the client doesn't want us to propose permit conditions, doesn't want, we've had a client once, didn't want us to do the rule analysis. Okay, we can do that, but that's not the best. Okay, but we can tell people, but we're not the deciders sometimes. So we
Okay.
have to be able to, let people know, is that what we're standing behind or not?
And that's along the lines of exactly what I had in my head is what you were saying with the manufacturer info. Sometimes you just can't get all the info, but you want to start the process.
Right.
And there's a recognition that it should be there. You can't get it yet, but let's start on what we can.
That's
So maybe
right.
that is an opt-in type provision.
That's right.
With
And
the-
sometimes we
yeah.
need to just go, hey, we're gonna get this in the queue and we're gonna wait for that. And that's just the way it is.
Is that speaking towards a CPP submitting out as a CPP?
Correct.
It's not part of the grade.
And the concept of a CPP this time.
Okay.
So, Mr. Quinn, thank you for your patience.
Oh, of course. So I'm not a CPP expert, and so I really defer to Judy, David, Bill, and others. But here's an observation that I just watching as you're going through this presentation. So you have 6 categories, 0 through 5. And I understand the 0 and the 5. But my concern is that there's going to be a lot of arguments if it's a 2, 3, or 4. And I'm wondering, do you need 6 categories? Because it seems like you're putting a lot of burden on the person who's going to review this to make subjective decisions if it should be a 2, a 3, a 4. And is that necessary? Wouldn't it be simpler as if you had a simpler process, good to go, needs work, rejected? I mean, because it seems
Yeah.
like those are really the options. It's either good to go, needs work, or it's rejected. So I just throw that out there, and I would be curious to hear from the folks who work with these if they think 6 degrees or 6 categories are really necessary. So that's my question. I guess overall, I want to make sure that this process goes forward. The goal is to simplify the process and speed up the process. And I just worry that you're going to have so many phone calls and arguments. I want a 4. No, you deserve a 2, or something like that. And is that productive?
Right.
So I'll stop there.
I give you a 5 on your comment. But no, loud and clear. It's the red light, green light, and if it's somewhere in between, we give you the feedback. But
We
yeah,
need a
it's still-
discussion before
yes.
it's gonna get the green light.
We're having a review, just saying, here's our feedback for you, CPP, but it's not holding it up. And
Yeah,
if you want
it's
to
more-
educate, maybe it should be separated from the pass fail.
It is more for for CPP education moving forward on other applications, not that process.
Yeah, I was thinking of 2 things. This is the initial rating, right? Those ratings could be subdivided into, binary or 3 levels or subcategories. The reason for this initial rating is because in terms of providing feedback, which is the first purpose for having these, is that things are missing, but they could be a systemic issue that someone doesn't, based on the evaluation, they miss an entire program, right? So that is why you would end up with a 0 or a 1.
But you
So-
had it in the
but-
comments,
But then the,
right?
that's providing the feedback. Well, I was saying this could translate into, 2 or 3 gradients if you put the cut line somewhere and just say okay, or 4 or 5 is, good to go in the other bill's language. And maybe 0 to 1 is not good to go. And then 2 or 3 is it's like in between. It's good, but with issues, right? But the reason for this level of breakdown is because, perfection, 5. So you maybe have a little thing. Okay, so then you really we want to preserve the integrity of the perfect gap, right? Or submittal. But then you have a 4 or 5, it's almost perfect. Okay, so that's a 4 should be considered good. Not saying I need to get 5 every time. 4 should be considered pretty much as good as you can get because people make mistakes. 0 is that's a no-go because the major issues, that's probably a systemic issue in terms of someone's understanding of what's required. And then the run is just a sloppy. They have too many things there. So to me, a 0, 1 is it's no good. So then you got 2 or 3. So then it's really binary in terms of 1 requires extensive feedback and 1 is well, okay. So that to me would be where the arguments would be on 2 to 3. All right. So that's how I kind of look at it, that as we get more information, maybe we knock it down to, 3 categories or maybe 2 categories if we only care about. But in terms of feedback, I think the gradation is going to be more helpful so that the CPP submitter is well, where did I go wrong? And it's you missed this whole program. So, yeah, or you weren't aware of a new rule amendment. And that's what's completely missing. And there's no way you can pass it. And why is that? Because maybe you need to work on staying on top of regulations as they get proposed and amended. And that's important feedback. Could be a gap if a CPP is not that active and they haven't done it for a year or so, and they come back and say, "Oh, I didn't realize there's a whole new set of regs here that I wasn't aware of." That's a systemic issue, and that should be identified as part of the feedback.
All right, I don't see any more hands up for task force members. Let's open it up for public comment on this. Natasha Mescal has her hand raised. Go ahead, Natasha.
Thank you. Natasha Mescal with Ecotech. I am working with permitting for 31 years. And I'm strongly agreeing with Ms. York in a sense. Okay, feedback is great. It's wonderful. But our primary goal is really to get better application and to process them faster, right? So my suggestion would be initial grading based on paper. Definitely contact the CPP, because if you identified issues in a permit application, they have to be resolved anyway before you can process. So initial contact with the CPP, I think it will speed up the application processes, not slow it down. And then maybe after initial contact, you can give another side of grading if some got resolved just based on the understanding from the paper. On top of it, if you contact CPP sooner after he submitted application, it will be everything fresh in their mind. They will not have to go back and try to recollect. So I see a lot of value in talking, and I see this only as expediting permit processing versus slowing it down, because we have to resolve them anyway. Now I'm not sure if it's a good time. That's my comment on the form. And as far as contacting, I do have few more comments as far as the priority of things that I see as it could help a lot. May I express them too?
Is it regarding this agenda item or?
It's not, it's in regarding CPPs in general. Like, for example, okay, I will be super short. I will leave.
Yeah, if it's for CPP, please proceed.
Yeah, only for CPP. So for example, this year for this CPP exam, there were no course that candidate could take prior to the CPP exam. That's number one. Number two, our CPP manual is from 2011. I think that one of the first things really to improve the quality of the application and processing speed is to update the CPP manual, and also to make it, if possible, any new established methodologies, public information. So I can go in more details on that, like that I was encountering in last few weeks. I was trying to contact, the permitting as far as the emission factor that was not publicly available, was told that it was done study internally, but they're not sharing because they cannot share because they don't have anywhere to log time to share. Since I didn't submit a permit. And it's like, I have to know, does it need control? Doesn't need control? What is my total facility risk rating? So similar to that. So updating the CPP manual, which I think it would be very helpful for internal staff and external people, in particular CPP, and then making information available somewhere publicly that is used by permitting that CPP engineer could try to utilize instead of coming up with more conservative and less appropriate approaches, and then you have to redo all the calculations, for example.
Right. Thank you very much for those. And in parallel with all of this, we are updating that CPP.
Yes,
right?
fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I do not see any other hands raised on this, but again, I encourage everyone, we will be making this available for review. Please get us any comments you have after we review it, and I think it's in 30 days?
Yeah.
Okay, 30 days from, so say, June 10th. So let's move along in our program today. Next up, Jillian Wong will be presenting our expedited permit program that looking to develop any task force recommendations on this program.
So given that we are past 11 o'clock, still have more items, I will go quick on this. That's a bunch of graphs anyway, just, giving you information. So by way of background, our XPP program, so it's expedited permit processing. It is in Rule 301. It is based on that overtime work premium, and that's why it's the 50% higher fee. And the applications are processed outside of the regular queue because they are worked on based on staff availability to do the overtime work. So there are other programs that will expedite permit issuance. And here's an example, for the certified equipment program, if it's common equipment, boilers, engines, I think ACIs, we have forms, you go on there, you put in the information, you will get your permit right away. We do have OLAF, the online application filing system, where there are some modules for certain equipment that meet certain criteria to also get you that permit issued right away. Now, for equipment where if you do put in the application and let's say you don't meet the criteria, like for example, receptor distance is too close or maybe public notice, that then gets kicked in-house to be processed. But the application still could come in through OLAF, and then CPP, like we were talking about, we're hoping to get that up and running so that there will be time savings realized doing that program. So if you look at the chart here, we're look at registrations versus permits. Registrations and those online filing completions really do account for a bulk of what we can get through on an annual basis. So couple of historical kind of timelines, as we were looking at data. Really, when you're looking at this for XPP applications, for the non-Title V apps, we do see that it is generally faster. So for the Title V apps, faster, yes, after a certain point. And what you'll see in the graphs that I show you, you'll see like there's within like the very quick ones, there is a lot of variation. And Jason will actually go over that on the next agenda item because he will break it down by the bins, and that is where we start seeing that difference. So once again, Title V, we do have EPA review, public notice, there might be CEQA considerations. And then also what we have seen is for the Title V applications, XPP is usually requested for applications that have longer processing timelines. Where they do know it's either more complicated, it's part of a larger project, and so those apps will come in XPP. So first of our charts on this one, what we took a look at are equipment that is common, I would say, right? Emergency engines, boilers, spray booths. And they commonly occur at both Title V and non-Title V facilities. And that is, so now if you look at it, you can see like if we're looking at processing timeline. So the numbers here show you the average days to the first completion. If you look at the processing timeline, obviously non-Title Vs get processed faster than Title V applications. When we start digging into the data, so here's the charts that we have. So on the left-hand side, you have the non-Title V. On the right-hand side, you have Title V. So if you look at it, the blue line is all applications. If you're focusing on the yellow and the green lines, so the green would be the non-XPP, and then the yellow would be the XPP applications. So looking at the non-Title V, you can see there definitely is a difference between XPP and non-XPP. Very clear, you do get time savings going XPP on those non-Title Vs. Now, when you look at the Title V applications, it isn't until you get to kind of like the middle, so like about week 8, where you start seeing, and then it's weird because it kind of flips, right? And so this is where we're talking about when you get to Title V, with all of the complexity and other program requirements, it isn't so clear cut. And sometimes these applications coming in might have like inherent complexities also. At Title V facilities, there might be other reasons. So this is where when we start looking at, emergency engines and we start looking at it, for emergency engines, I think that's where it is like the most baffling, where it is not trending the way that we would expect. You get to boilers, just like before on the non-Title V, it is what you expect. Non-XPP takes longer, the XPP ones go faster. But now when you get to the Title V applications, once you get to about week 6, then it trends the way we expect, where the XPP applications go faster and the non-XPP, that green line, then is slower. Then you get to the spray booths, and just like the other two you see on the non-Title V side, it tracks faster with XPP. You get to the Title V applications, it tends to track more like what we would expect and more like the non-Title V. So, these are just 3 equipment categories that we've looked at in terms of kind of charting out timelines and XPP and, trying to understand the benefit in XPP. And I think this was one of the questions that was brought up is XPP even worth it? So this is the data based on what we see.
When you talk about data, about how many samples do you have? How much data is used to come up with the graphs?
So we looked at the time frame, was it 2021 to 2025?
It's a lot of applications.
Yeah, it's a lot. I think we moved to 2018.
Or 2018, yeah, but it
Yes.
wasn't just like 1 year. We tried to pull in a snapshot to get something
The
meaningful.
sample size has anything to do with it. No.
Correct.
But if you just take,
Oops, sorry.
for fun, if you just look at, say, for spray booths, which is great, and you go to the 70%,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
It takes off about 4 weeks. I'm just trying to look, my eyes are going in every direction.
We do have hard copies available.
4 weeks quicker, right?
Yes,
that's
XPP
months.
does save a month.
Correct.
And that's a month out of, 2 or 3 months, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. It's a 30% faster, basically.
Yeah, on average, I mean, we deal with a bell curve here.
Yeah.
There may be other circumstances that pop it out, but
Yeah.
it's,
Yes.
the odds are, it would
It's-
land.
Make it faster.
Oh, yes, that's right. And you know what? Dave mentioned something to me, so if you look at the bottom axis, right? I know the first one says 1 week, but after that, we get into months. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh,
is months.
those
So
are
I
months.
was wrong on that one.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Yeah, so I know the first one says 1
Okay.
week, and then after that, if you
Okay.
look, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are by month.
Oh, well, then I would say, why does it take so long at all for a paint booth, an engine? I mean, when we do permit application for an engine is 2 weeks for us. A boiler is 2 weeks. A paint booth, maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's gonna show up when Jason covers his slides,
Yeah.
but this is everything.
Yeah.
So it includes the categories that we want to prioritize, which will be it'll
Yeah.
be a little more.
When he gets to his bins,
Yes.
it'll be in there.
Wow.
I guess I don't understand it. For the, either for the non-Title V or Title V, it takes 17 weeks,
Months.
17 months. Oh, so that 1 week is a misprint?
No, it's just because a lot of applications come in and they get immediately rejected. They're completed. So if we spread it out so you don't see that big spike, that first.
It was to smooth out the curve on the first data point.
Yeah.
So this,
Otherwise, it looks really.
I was like, wow, this is really good.
so this
Sorry.
is 17 months then.
Months.
Yes.
And so on the non-Title V, if you look, it's 17 months, and then you look, that is for us to get through more than 90% of the applications.
Yeah, on the left, the axis, the y-axis, the vertical axis, that's percent of apps that are completed within that time frame.
Okay, now,
But state
What-
law is 180 days.
For new construction.
now, isn't it possible in your new permit streamlining online that you could get, I think I heard somebody claim at one of the meetings that we had here that you could issue a permit in 30 minutes or an hour or something like that, theoretically.
That was for a certain category, and if you meet the criteria
And
to
I
get
understand.
issued that permit right away.
If everything, the tracks are clear and everything is
That was the
going
other
right. Yeah.
Correct.
But that's whatever the number is, that is obviously extremely faster than 17 months. And I would venture to say that the vast majority of spray booths are kind of my folks. They're small businesses or smaller facilities, one piece of equipment. That's it, maybe two if it's a larger operation. And typically, these business owners, one, they're leasing or renting their property, so their rent goes on. They've got staff on hand, so their payroll goes on while they're waiting for this permit to to be received. That's really intolerable for that. There's got to be a way to speed this
Let
up.
me respond to this, and we're going to touch on it in the next item a little bit.
Okay.
There's an assumption there that all of these applications are coming in for permits to construct and are not already installed or have problems with them moving forward before the pre-construction process. And we're going to break that down of those two differences in times and the drivers of why you see this carry on some more, and also the development of some of our priorities, with the task force feedback, because what we're seeing is the companies moving forward without a permit to construct are really dragging out the process and, as expected, utilizing a lot of our resources. And we're now getting to those.
Well, if they're moving forward without a permit to construct, then they got to worry about getting the ticket then, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is where we get into the discussion of defining our backlog. So just understand this is everything. Those that have illegally moved forward with their projects and those who have also adhered to the process. And what we see on the next item is timelines get a lot better for new constructions, pre-construction. It's a lot less than the 180 days that Judy had.
But as I said earlier, not only does he have lease or rent payments, he's got wages. He also has payments on the equipment that he legally can't use, and no income coming in. So
We agree, and that's typically why we have prioritized permits to construct. However, sometimes that does result in other applications sitting for a while, but we're still obligated to address those. But we'll get into it in the next item a little bit. We make that division in the data.
how many permits a month or a year or something like that are we talking about of people that select an expedited permit versus just going in somebody's in basket?
Do we have the total on XPP?
I mean, thousands, hundreds?
I didn't hear the exact question.
For a single year, how many XPP?
Come in XPP, but it's not XPP.
Months in the middle.
I don't know that we have that offhand, but we
Yeah.
can get that.
Yeah.
We can get that for you.
Dozens, or, I mean, I don't know,
I would venture more than dozens.
dozens?
Yeah, I think for most facilities we deal with it is worth the extra 50% to try and get an expedited application.
Because I tend to follow your civil filing, civil penalties report every month and to see, is there a trend or something like that on any particular group of people that.
All right, so the next slide is looking once again at just showing you XPP versus non-XPP for Title V. And that is reiterating, we see it on the minus or the non-Title V facilities. where the XPP really does help permitting timelines when it comes to the Title V facilities. Some benefit, especially on the spray booths, but on the engines and the boilers, not as much. So non-Title V applications, you can see the benefit there, definitely much greater than the Title V applications. And then this slide was kind of the bonus slide where we put every bar chart that we showed you onto one. So you can compare it for yourself in terms of looking at how the bars stack up to each other on what I had showed previously.
We will open it up for task force discussion. No information there, but just discussion, feedback, thoughts on expedited program, things we may not be thinking of, other questions. We do know it's a lot of information. All right, don't see any hands. I do see one in our public comment. So why don't I just open it up for public comment? We can still go back to task force. Rita Luth, your hand raised, please go ahead. There you go, Rita, go ahead.
There we are. Good morning, Rita Louvre, Director of Environmental Affairs for RadTech International. I've been a CPP for more years than I care to admit. And thank you for your efforts to expedite the permit program. If the goal is to reduce permitting backlog while still protecting air quality, then I think the key principle is to differentiate between projects that create environmental risk and projects that reduce environmental risk. So like creating an expedited pollution prevention permit track, like establishing a fast track review process for projects that reduce emissions compared to existing operations, and things like electrification of equipment, energy efficiency upgrade, or VOC reduction technologies. You have spray booths on slide 29, and not all spray booths are using the same materials. So some rules, like for example, 1136, do not differentiate between the types of materials that are used, between toxic containing coatings and non-toxic containing coatings. So I'm hoping that the permitting team is communicating with the rule team so that low VOC coating operations are incentivized through programs like exemptions in Rule 219 as an example, which that can reduce engineering review time dramatically, because then you're not adding another permit to your backlog. Another suggestion is a tiered environmental review. Not every project requires the same level of analysis. So I would urge your team to identify projects that go above and beyond and give the district emission reductions that are not required by the rules. So there should be some sort of a comparative analysis between projects that meet the minimum requirements versus pollution prevention projects. And the latter should be fast-tracked. That directs staff attention where risks are the greatest. And I would also suggest creating a list of pollution prevention technologies, much like the district has done with clean air solvents. And that can help CPPs speed up their process as well. And ultimately, that's what we want. We want to help the CPPs, and because that's ultimately going to assist the district in getting applications out faster. The one thing that, the district review does is that success is measured through the number of permits processed rather than the emissions reduced. So I would urge you to, ask how many tons of pollution reduction are enabled per staff hour. I mean, ultimately, that's the goal. Thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you very much, Rita, on that. I think some of this will come up in the next item. Do want to add in terms of the regulatory structure, if there's a modification that's reducing emissions for a new source review program, and then also new source review for toxics. If it's reducing emissions, generally there's a lot less for staff to evaluate for those requirements. Go ahead.
Do your permit engineers have a quota?
No, there is not a quota, although we do regularly monitor and report our production. Our managers look at their overall productions for their teams, make sure nothing is falling behind. This is done probably weekly, almost daily basis. And then we do our reporting to the board as well, to this body.
So seems to me you might consider paying your permit engineers by the permit piecework or something like that, rather than by the hour.
I will say we do have a target, and we meet it as our as a division, and then adjust from there. But that's some of what we're going to discuss next. Is we do want to develop targets as we shift. But yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, I'll ask any other feedback. I'm not seeing anything, so let's keep on moving along, and we'll get to our last presentation. As I was mentioning, we did want to have a discussion about permitting work plan priorities as we develop them. So last time we all met in this task force, we did present what we deemed as the application bins, and that's essentially discrete, very distinct categories of our applications that we deal with, because not everything is a brand new permit to construct. And so there's various I guess variables that we have for workflows and staffing and prioritization as we work through this. And then also we have when we look at the aged components, even the definition of aged itself, that has varying impacts on our workload. Obviously, industry is waiting for permits, but then also the public, if there's any health impacts from maybe toxic impacts that these facilities are resulting in emissions of toxic air contaminants. We've identified some key focus areas, but our application bins are listed on the right-hand side. There are actually 8 bins. However, we do not include awaiting pre-screening since it is such a brief part of our process. So we dissected it down to the 7 other bins. The highlighted items are those key focus areas, the main ones being awaiting permit to construct, which I think is the default for everyone's mindset of what is a permit application or what they envision. However, we do have all the other ones. We also have many, you're talking about equipment that has been installed or modified without a permit. We have Title V permit renewals, which is a very different process for a single application. However, we have to review the entire facility's compliance status and revisit permit conditions. 4 and 5, we typically put together, but it's our other categories, and those are administrative or non-administrative. That may be plan reviews or changes of conditions. other things we may need to get to. And then 6 are applications that we've already issued a permit to construct, but we keep open while waiting a source test or other compliance determination. And then way down at the bottom, not necessarily because it's lesser priority, but it's our emission reduction credits applications that are a non-administrative process. So those are our bins. We've been breaking it down to in order to try and establish priorities, so we're not lumping all these all together and treating it as a single number and potentially oversimplifying it. In the past, I think this is focused more attention on the low-hanging fruit, while items under number 2, where there's not necessarily a squeaky wheel for a facility because they've already moved forward with construction without the permit. So just revisiting all of these as a whole. Here is the breakdown of that we presented previously, just as an updated look for April we look at when you look at this, it's divided by minor source and Title V on the right. We do typically have the 3 main categories within our focus areas is taking up the inventory is equipment awaiting permit to construct, which is in that darker yellow. And then a very large component, and this is what I was discussing earlier, is equipment installed without permit to construct. We see it more on the minor source side than the Title V side. But that is a gigantic component of what we're dealing with. And then the last one is the permits to construct we've already issued. And I think Bill may have.
A quick question. So the second category, that's the same as number 2 on the previous slide?
The light yellow?
Yeah.
Yes, installed, modified without a permit.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a breakdown of those bins we were discussing. Very distinct operations we have when staff goes to do the work.
How do you know that number, 915? I mean, have you ticketed all 915 or?
It's marked on the application.
It's part of the application process, and sometimes we find out during the application process, and we'll switch it over.
I see.
Yeah, so not all ever receive violations, but some have. But yeah, that's how it's grouped in our database. So as you all know, as was just said, we focused on production under PEP. I think when we started all of this coming out of COVID, the car was in the garage up on blocks, and we had a lot of work to do. Right now, the car is drivable. We're seeing very good production, but we're at a pivot point right now because we're still playing catch up on some of the older applications. Turnaround times are still a concern as we do that. I'll say separately from this, we've looked at we've had an increased action on aged applications, and we've over doubled those. I think we're at 128% right now. So that's the catch up that we're doing on some of the things that have been sitting and becoming aged. But as we move forward under PEP and just in general, we're going to be developing a new work plan and start to have targets for aged applications. And when I say that, it's also defining what is aged, what is a working inventory, what is considered a backlog. In a lot of our reporting as well, we've touched on what is considered workable or what is considered unworkable that we can't move on, such as something that is awaiting a source test with an issued permit to construct. So these are all questions we're asking ourselves of what's appropriate, but wanted to bring it to the task force. You saw the breakdown of we'll see it more of Title V, non-Title V. Those are 2 distinct permitting programs. The applications that in the past had previously taken a lower priority with the PO no PC essentially means they proceeded with construction and operation without a permit. Is there other priorities we need to consider? And then building on what Jillian was indicating is on the left, this is the breakdown of our 2 programs for key equipment application types. But on the left with the hashed pattern is our Title V program. You see and on the left, this is average days to completion. So on average, you're just over a year. I think this comes out to under the 18 months that you heard some of the significant initial or renewal permitting actions we have in the Title V program. Some are a lot less than that in the Title V program. And this is also broken down by XPP and non-XPP as well, but also the proceeding without a permit to construct in the red. And then a lot lower on the minor source side. You're talking about the 180 day deadline. It's in between the 150 and 200 there, but you see that for the most part, if it's not, unless it's something that moved forward illegally without pre-construction review, we stay under those timelines for new constructions and registrations. So this is where the focus on just the amount of time we're spending, the consideration we need to have for these PO, no PC applications. And then lastly, we broke it down into the common equipment, and this gets exactly to what Bill Lamar was asking. If you start on the right, you see on the spray booth side, you do see a lot higher timelines in the red, the solid red and the red hash for those applications. Different distinction between Title V program and non-Title V still, but gives you an idea on what we look at permit issuance timelines for this. But just some more information as we go and develop this new work plan. We appreciate any feedback, observations to consider as we do this. This isn't a one-time discussion. Obviously, we always value your feedback, and we'll keep talking about this as we develop this work plan. But wanted to open it up for task force discussion. Go from right to left here. Start with Bill Pierce again.
I just had just a question. Are you still assigning class 1, class 3 differentiation in the permit apps coming in? Yes.
So for the lay person, class 1 is our permits to construct. There's not equipment there. And then as it goes to class 3, that means basic terms equipment's there.
I guess historically it causes us issues off and on because a lot of times we look at the class 3 as being more important to us than the class 1 because it's either something that's clarifying a condition or changes that we look at it from a compliance standpoint that we want to be addressed in the permit. And so it's just, I think I've mentioned it before. So it's just always an ongoing, and then we have to work with engineering to try and get it off the bottom of the stack.
Yeah, and that is the 4 and 5 in the bins. Those are those other applications in terms of, and it depends if it's something you're waiting to do. I think we still make that distinction there if you're going to be constructing or modifying and it's a pre-review process.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just like clarifying or a rule has changed. And so but we can't take advantage of the rule language until we get the specific permit condition amended.
Right.
And so they're quite important to us, but then it's a task to get it, because I know historically they just get put on the bottom of the pile.
Yeah.
And so just a comment with respect to that particular item.
Yeah, and those ones do, when we look at turnaround times, do tend to go out a lot faster. We have a lot less inventory. But as we go through this is how do we keep that balance? I think on the, if you look at the bins here, other apps is a horrible color for contrast, or other apps administrative is 108 and 13, and then the non-administrative 168, 430. So still a substantial number, especially on the Title V side. But no, that is a good note for us to consider that, you know, we need, and we include that in our key focus areas right now, to make sure that we are getting to those. So thank you.
Thanks.
David.
Appreciate the breakdown and update. It's very helpful. But as far as looking at the data, the first thing that would help me as far as providing feedback would be, rather than looking at averages, it's what's kind of the box and whiskers, like what's the high, what's the low, and then the average, because the average probably isn't the problem. So a little bit more information on, okay, is there a grouping of here's indicating a problem or a bottleneck might be helpful to identify that. And I don't know if you have that, but that would be helping me provide feedback. And at least for my members on the wastewater side, we still have folks saying it's taking years to get certain things done. And, you know, maybe someone doesn't have a complete application or maybe something unique, but at least coming from the essential public sector, we still have the dilemma of, I got to build something. It's got to be done. And it's putting me in a situation where do I just build it and, hey, go enforce because I have to build it. That's not the position we want to be in. But that's the first thing my members are saying. It's like, we want to do it right. But if we get bogged down in the process, we don't know how to fix the process, we're put in an awkward situation. So I don't know where that fits, but that, for my folks, that would be where they're coming.
No, absolutely. And the waste management, so the last presentation to the board is still, you know, one of our priorities, and we're continuing to act on that. We see sometimes it's a staffing issue in trying to get more resources at those backlog areas for review. So definitely. You mentioned box and whisker. I smile because it is something we are discussing on our side. So, you know, we do have those and can definitely present them because it does provide that, you know, where are you in the box and the average.
You assess,
Yes.
Here's what's going on.
Yeah.
And we also talked about kind of where the permit was within the process. And my observation was staff does a really good job cranking out permits, and it goes to a higher level. That's usually where it slows down. So it's just really getting to the bottom of, okay, where's it slowing down? Why is it slowing down?
Yeah, it definitely is a bottleneck in certain teams. So it's addressing that. It's also the why. You know, it's naturally going to happen in a reporting structure, but making sure it doesn't happen too severely. You know, too severe of a bottleneck. So
If there, you know, is a bottleneck, and it's like it needs to have a bottleneck for a good reason, that makes sense. But it just seems like if there's too few people at that critical juncture, maybe more people at that point, is just getting the information to say, okay, what would fix the problem? Is it process? Is it staff? Is it the applications? Is it all the above? And then what would get you the most bang for your buck to focus on? So, you know, a little bit more information would help at least me be constructive.
okay, great, thank you. Bill Lamar.
Yeah, so your goal, I hope here, in this slide is to bring this red bar down from, what is it, 2.5 years, nearly 2.5 years, 900 days to, in closer proximity to where the blue bar is.
So these would be those that are not on the new construction timeline.
Yeah.
And that is one of those, I think a lot of these, if they proceed without, so if they proceed with operating without a permit and they don't have permit conditions, I think it is more on the impacts to the surrounding community receptors that we need to get those in place to make, and also for fairness, competition between businesses of someone has done the proper thing. We've gone through and issued permits to construct to them. But also we need to regulate those red bars.
But the permit to operate and no permit to construct, is this more of an issue of affordability for some people?
I don't think it can
Or
venture
they
to
just
say
don't.
the why. I think it's a mixed bag of all items of people deciding to move forward, roll the dice.
I know for smaller business, I mean, 50%
Yeah.
50% more is
Yeah.
is a heck of an investment.
The risk of a violation. I think for each business or individual, that's a different story. Can't really say what that might be.
I mean, flying under the radar is one thing, but getting caught is, there goes your savings or your perceived savings, to pay you guys, for whatever their fine is.
Yeah, I would say typically, and I'll continue to, we recognize for those that are coming in for a permit to construct, trying to get those out in a timely manner, more of the blue bars, because it is awaiting some district action. We're holding something up. So we keep those a priority, but it's the balance as we develop this work plan of a lot of our aged applications are these red bars. But we can't let it get too unwieldy. And we need to have a balance of priorities, and we're developing what that is.
Do you feel that you're aggressively marketing your online application? I mean, when a new permittee comes up to Diamond Bar or calls you on the phone or whatever it is, says, I want to start a business or expand my business or whatever it is, does that person at the other end of the line say, well, we have this program, relatively new program, and certain equipment, a spray booth or emergency engine or whatever it happens to be, is part of that, and here's the benefits of using that, rather than going through the traditional process. Are you doing that?
I don't know. You want to
Yeah, I
touch
would
on
say
that?
that, those ones that you're referring to for, definitely on the 222 filing / registration.
Right.
Yeah, those are, that's what the bulk of the filing, had occurred. And those are, we push those online filing to do that, where it's available. For the permits, it's a very limited set. There was a lot more marketing for the dry cleaners because they had some deadlines back when we put it online. And those are much more straightforward and easy to process in terms of when we're talking about application quality. Those are the ones that could have a lot of fives. They don't really need a lot of extra review because they're straightforward.
Well, dry cleaners had a perk issue. That
Those are the
was
ones
it.
that we prioritized to put in the online filing system. For the other two, the gas station spray booths is a very limited scope that can be processed online. So the benefits for that turnaround aren't really there for those two, and making it available online doesn't really cut into that processing time because it's only a small subset of applications that can be processed. Now, the registration engines can be, but there also are restrictions on those as well. That's why we included the registration engine there on the end. That's the purple one, just so you can see, okay, for those types, yeah, it's going to be a quicker turnaround. But even that is restricted because of there's still toxic and public notice requirements that will limit the ability to issue it online without some kind of staff review.
Because, so much of the equipment that that is subject to a permit has been permitted hundreds, if not thousands of times. And there's source test data available and everything. I mean, a spray booth is a spray booth is a spray booth. Dry cleaning operation, certain restaurant operations, emergency standby engines. I mean, all of those. There really isn't much new under the sun, to evaluate.
For some of those, I would say, well, I disagree with spray booths just because we see so many varieties and very toxic materials from those. And we have specialized rules for some spray booth operations. For the others is David identified some of the restriction we have, but I do want to put a number to this because we looked at it recently. For last year, almost 20% of our applications went through the online process. So we've identified a lot of the low-hanging fruit that requires minimal review and put it through this process, and it is well utilized. It's the rest of it that does not lend itself for the automated process that has many things that Judy looks in your evaluations, modeling, toxics, offsets, Title V requirements, where you reclaim things that don't lend itself for automated and requires an engineer's review and evaluation. So we try and identify it where it is, but as you get more and more complexity, more and more rule complexity, it does not lend itself to developing an online module. Not to mention when I think that we just had something with the charbroilers of when the rule changes, and then we got to go back to the drawing board to develop the module. So it is a bit dynamic in that sense, but we've done pretty well on the online modules. And I don't know if if David knows the number offhand, but I think most of the applications that can utilize a module go through that process, and only a small fraction.
Right.
I'll say inadvertently, whatever, not unknowingly come into paper process.
Yeah.
Is that less than
Well,
5%?
I think for some applicants, they they end up resubmitting their filing, so it's easier for them just to take a copy of what they submit before rather than hand entering it. But over time, you've seen the increase in the number of submittals online.
But to your point earlier about spray booths, there really isn't much under the sun. You got a cross draft or you got a down draft spray booth, and coatings are coatings. Now you got PCBTF and TBAC are out, and you're going to have some reformulations coming out maybe in a year or 6 months or something like that. But of all the operations, I don't know how many thousands of spray booths we have here in Southern California in your jurisdiction, but they're pretty much all the same. The only difference being one, the painter at a particular place might be better or worse than the guy down the street. And then the other innovation, of course, difference would be Rita's technology on how the paint is cured or dried, or whether it's air dried or UV or infrared or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, they're pretty much of a cookie cutter operation.
So I'll acknowledge that maybe 20 years ago that was the case, but if you look at coatings and what we've done over time, or what has happened over time, ethyl benzene, a very common compound in coatings, is now a carcinogen. So that's immediate health risk and actually developing permit conditions for those. PCDBF, TBAC, there is a sell-through provision for a lot. So now that if 1401 is adopted for new constructions, if PCTBF is still in those coatings, it is going to severely restrict usages because of the high toxicity of those. So that will take more timeline. Also, diisocyanate is about to get listed. I forget which one. HCI, which is another issue that's being addressed under 1401. So yes, the spray booth technology is the same, but the requirements that we're having to review and evaluate for under our engineering evaluations for health risks and toxics, that has changed a lot.
Yeah.
And it keeps, toxics aren't getting delisted.
But
They keep adding them.
You can tweak chemistry just so far. Yeah. My 5-year paint job on my car, is probably good for maybe 3 years or something now. And the same thing applies to my house, that lifetime guarantee is maybe worth 10, 15 years, and that's it, if that, but.
But yeah, it's one of those, but I see right, if Judy wants to touch on that point,
Oh.
I'll go Judy and then Bill Quinn and then Bill Pierce.
Okay. As far as our program, so I'm going to your slide 37 and a new development of a new work plan. I do think we really need to keep pedal to the metal on working toward processing all applications within 180 days. I just want to put that out there. And then I do think we still have an alarmingly large number of minor sources are close to 1,800 and Title V facilities are close to 500. And then looking at the timeline, some of these timelines are still very, very long. And I do think they should be prioritized. I thought Rita's suggestion was good. Emission reductions should be prioritized. I thought you guys touched on an important topic, which is air toxics for the permits that have, no permit to construct. That should be prioritized. I do get concerned about what people are doing out there without a permit. And then I think compliance issues that people need, permit conditions changed, whatever it is, compliance issues should also be prioritized. But I think structurally, we should look into what is this large difference in Title V versus non-Title V, non-permit to construct. There's a huge gap in that. So I'm looking at common equipment, 39. It's a very large, you can see it there too. It's a very large time difference. What is that? Why is that? So what structurally can be done to go at that? And frankly, some of these, I don't know how to solve this, but some of these permits to operate with no PC, permit engineers, we should be looking at those. Do they meet backed? Are there toxics? And then if there really is not enough information, they should get, in an ideal world, kicked out to some CPP who can get the thing, 90% there and then back into the queue so that it can get processed. I don't know how to do that, but if there are complex ones that are we can't process this because there's hardly anything here, something needs to be addressed there.
Thank you for that. I think we ask ourselves, we identify the same issues on our side, and that's
Right.
the how and the why.
Oh, I have done it. I find some boiler somewhere and it's like, we got to get an app in and then we'll figure this out. But, that the permit engineer can't do anything with that.
And I think,
it's forms and fees, but still,
and you heard what Jason said with regards to like Title V complexities, but also it's the rules. And so a lot of these, like when you're looking at that 900 number for Title V Class 3s, it takes long. And as we are working through what we have in inventory that are very aged and Class 3, that number, because we're giving you a average time to completion.
Yeah.
So that number is going to look high for a while until we can get through.
But I would also draw a line and go, if something's more than 600 days, what is wrong with that? And let's reject it, or I don't know, let's really, there's a time to,
We can sit here all day, we won't, but these are, the conversations we're having.
But that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
I guess is maybe what I'm saying.
Okay. I have a question, but I want to get to Bill's. Well, let's go to Bill Quinn first, and then I have a question for the task force on what is age. So, Bill, go ahead.
So I just want to put out on the table there, have you given any consideration to the use of AI for some portion of your permit processing? I don't think any of us recognize that we're in a world today where AI can produce a permit. but it seems like AI can be used to help identify things that are needed, or, there must be some applications where AI can play a role. So I'm curious if you have anybody looking at that, or where do you stand on using AI for a part of the work you do on a permit application?
Well, this will come later, but currently we are, it was developed through AI, but it's just a new dashboard that we're utilizing that is, I'd say, very enhanced to identify problem areas. A lot of the things, we're presenting today, it digging into the permit inventory, the different application types, utilizing AI that way right now. I think we recognize the potential there, but still just dipping our toes into it right now. Understanding, our responsibilities on this, but it's on the table. I'll say that.
Great. Just while we were talking here, I just went to ChatGPT and just asked the question, please develop a permit application for a small engine in the South Coast AQMD. And wow, what it printed out was quite amazing. And everybody might want to just play with that just to see what its capabilities are. It's quite amazing.
All right.
That's all
Don't
I
forget
have.
your fees with that, though.
Thank you.
Sounds good. I think you briefly raised your
I was
hand
gonna say,
during
it's
that.
very problematic. You can
Yes.
use it to help you with the data, but we found a big error rate. We've
Okay.
tried. We've been looking at it and we'll keep tinkering with it, but there's a big error rate.
Right now,
at
we're
this point.
utilizing it as a tool to analyze our data is basically what we're doing, not necessarily for permit process.
Yeah.
The question I wanted to pose to the task force before we open this up to public comment and move on. We talk a lot about the term aged, and we've used different terminology for that, less than 180 days. We always have as our green, and then there's the yellows and oranges at the 6 months to 1 year, 1 year to 2 years, and then over 2 years is red, is aged. And something we sit and contemplate is for the Title V program, what is considered an aged application in the task force view?
Well, yeah, my only comment is that when we had our Title V facilities, it wasn't so much holdups at the district or public comment periods. They were held up at EPA, and sometimes that was 2 years or more, where they were holding permits because they wouldn't approve until a rule change occurred. And so I guess there's a lot for Title V, there's a lot of items that play into the processing time.
And I think as we develop this is we look at back to the workable, unworkable. There's nothing we can, obviously we're working with EPA during that permit processing. We can't move forward, but is it part of our backlog?
Well, yeah, that's a different question.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't want to see, so they're active permits, they just happen to be sitting at EPA until another event occurs.
Yeah. So that's why it's we throw all the resources internally at it. It's not moving without external factors happening. So I think we're looking at that too. Judy.
An issue problem that has, of course, landed on our doorstep, and I don't know whether I sent you an email on it or not, but those EPA Title V permits are valid for 5 years. We have applications that take longer, and then the permit expires and a renewal is submitted, but it doesn't get processed within 5 years. So now we have an expired Title V permit with an application that is also greater than 5 years. And then the question comes, do we submit another renewal? We think so, yes.
Well,
I think EPA thinks we have to do that. We don't know. There's no legal. We're in never land at that point. So I'm gonna say anything beyond 5 years, but from a due date, I have problems with.
I think, yeah, I think as we develop this, there is, it's a tiered system is at a certain point, some are critical. If it is actionable, workable, we've been using, and it is that old, then I think that turns into a critical backlog.
I thought EPA had so many days to comment. I thought they got cut off.
I think it is
They
just,
can't hold a permit up in suspension because they want a rule change. Am I wrong on that?
my understanding is there's no cap on the amount of time on EPA's process. I'm looking at council.
I thought once.
Yeah, we're all looking to you.
Yeah.
A cap on their time for,
Comments.
there is in the statute, right? It's,
Right.
I think so. They have a time limited review period and a time limited period to receive it.
But if they have
Just
comments,
subject.
So they give a comment and say, we want a rule change, but that shouldn't prevent an applicant from getting their permit based
Oh.
on current requirements.
not the
They're
45 day.
super approved, right?
To the extent we're working through EPA comments, that would
Yes.
be on an in-depth timeline. If
Yes.
That's what you're talking
I think
about. This is a
that's-
problematic renewal and you want to talk about it more. Yeah, perhaps that follows its own timeline. I'm not saying it justifies the longer timelines you're
The
talking
issue
about.
is once they open up comments, you're sort of stuck. If
It
EPA
needs to be
has
resolved.
comments,
Yeah, it needs to be resolved before moving forward, and there's.
so at least that's been our
Deadlines.
history with Region 9, Region 2, I mean, other regions too. Once they choose to comment, then there are no time periods per se.
But
Yes.
the old permit expires, a
We
new
have-
permit is required?
We have facilities that are going through their second permit application so they retain the permit still
Yeah,
10 years plus.
yeah,
Not here,
that
but
seems,
other,
yeah, that seems to me
application
crazy.
seal.
right.
Right.
So that's what we depend upon.
That's, yeah, agreed, that, right, that's what the regulated community is like, okay, I'll just submit another, thing, but from the regulator should go, this is not okay. We've got to be processing a permit within 5 years for a 5-year renewal.
Yeah, that's just some of the, as we develop a backlog, definitely. Minor sources, I think, is a lot more clear in terms of developing priorities, what is reasonable timeframe, regulatory timeframe, actually.
Yeah,
And then, and then we can tier it beyond them.
yeah.
But within the Title V program is, you have different types of applications, different projects that are grouped together. So it's something we're trying to develop on is what is an age, what should be a working inventory of, we're getting to it in a timely manner. Is it 180 days? Is it something else?
I think
Or is it
everything should be
longer?
done in 180 days.
Or-
You're talking to the School of York, 180 days. That's what state law says.
All right.
I like that idea, but I think realistically, Title V is gonna take a little bit more time.
Yeah.
But as far as aged, what's the purpose of the term? Is it for the board? Is it for you? I mean, I like the idea of what can you, if everything's going well, you get good application, you have enough staff, how long should it take?
Yes.
If that's okay, minor source, 6 months, Title V, a year, anything beyond those two, I would say aged, if you're saying, is it something we should do better at? Is that the term you're going for? Aged means we should be able to do it faster.
Yeah,
I don't know if that
I would
works.
say, let's take two applications. One's newer in the door. Another has been maybe sitting for whatever reasons. It has become aged, is 3 years old. As we develop these priorities, this work plan, at what point, so we can provide instruction to staff on, what, targets to hit of let this one sit a little bit longer, you need to get this one out.
Right.
The older, I'm sorry, for those that are not in the room, focus attention on the older ones now, because there's now time, have this cross some time critical threshold of this is on us, we need to shift and get these out and then, lower and have a target for maybe the number of aged applications we have, whatever that definition is. So we have a process, so staff has direction on at what point that outweighs maybe something new in the door that we can't process immediately.
I guess the question is, following on the comment, what we don't want to see is like one size fits all, especially when it comes to facility permits like reclaim. Sometimes we use the open application process to ask the permit engineer make other changes in the permit. Minor changes that don't require a application, but they still take time. And I know that slows down the process somewhat, but I guess it's just, but we just make use of that open application.
Yeah. So these are all things we're developing. It's a continuing discussion. We wanted to get, feedback now as we start out on this and contemplate new work plans, targets, priorities. Turnaround times, I think, is another shift we're making. The box in which it plots. We're at a pivot point right now with decent production. We'll probably see increases in it while we're balancing all our enhancements. But wanted to introduce it here. We'll have more for the task force coming up. I haven't gone to public comment yet on this item, but when I open it up, Rita, you have your hand raised. Go ahead. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, Rita Aloof, Director of Environmental Affairs for RadTech. And I wanted to comment on slide 39 regarding the spray booths and reformulation. And while I appreciate the reference to Rita's technology, I really want to acknowledge that UV, EV, LED is really RadTech's technology. But Bill Lamar brings up an important point regarding reformulation. Now that TBAC and PCBTF are being phased out, that means that facilities are going to need to reformulate and thus apply for modifications to their existing spray booth permit or get a new permit. So as I previously mentioned, there should be some regulatory flexibility and relief for companies that are reformulating because the district is mandating it. And I also wanted to point out a distinction between spray booths versus spray machines. Some of the equipment that we use to spray coatings onto a substrate are actually fully enclosed robotic machines. They are not the traditional spray booth where there's an operator in a booth with a spray gun spraying the substrate. These are fully enclosed machines. They are labeled as, quote, spray booth for purposes of district permitting, but they are designed to recycle 99% of the overspray, and they're essentially fully enclosed. There's a practical reason for facilities to do that because the UV, EV, LED coating is many times more expensive than the solvent-borne coating. So they want to make sure to use every drop of it and not let any go to waste. But that means that essentially not only is the material itself less than 50 grams per liter, which is much less than what the district requires in most coating rules, but the overspray is captured and it's recycled. So there really is, it's an airtight system and there's no operator involved. So there should be some recognition of that and some connection between this task force and what happens at the policy level, which is the rule team, writing new policies on this. To me, as I've participated and observed the process, there seems to be a disconnect. So I hope that the reformulations out of TBAC and PCBTF are on your radar screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. I'll just briefly touch on that item. For existing equipment, there shouldn't be modifications unless the facility is looking to increase their operations, because they would be grandfathered under, well, once 1401 is amended, which is on calendar, I believe, for August, later this year, I'll say, then those existing permits would be grandfathered from the time they were permitted, unless they apply for some other increase for their operations, in which they would then be reassessed for Rule 1401, and those compounds would come into play. But if they maintain status quo with their current permits, that should be fine, except they still have to follow the source-specific rule, such as 1136, to utilize whatever coatings are compliant. So not expecting that, just want to make sure everyone's clear on that approach. All right, any other public comment on this agenda item? And then we'll move on to some brief items to close out the meeting. Seeing none, let's move forward. Thank you everyone for the discussion on that. Very helpful. Do want to move on to other business. This is more of an announcement, not necessarily a discussion item, but we want to make everyone aware that we had previously talked about the plasma arc and laser metal cutting chapter. It is being released for review. Request previously was asked if that could happen. So we are providing that. We do ask written comments, but that's not the end of it. We do want to have a permitting working group, and we have that scheduled for September 22nd, tentatively, since it's still pretty far out, but that's our intent, is to have a focused discussion on this chapter, since it does get kind of granular on that. But we are looking for comments. This is a draft. We want to make sure everyone gets a chance to review and comment on that. And then I'll get to your question. I do want to, as always, notify the public. If you want any permitting related notifications or updates, please sign up for email alerts for permitting working groups and for this task force as well. And so let's pause, go to task force questions. Oh, we have one more.
Yeah, one more other business item. We updated the CPP listing of the people who have CPPs that had come up in one of the prior meetings. The old listing was just a straight listing from our database of all the consultants. We posted, now it's in a spreadsheet. So if people wanted to look for certain particular competencies, it should be easier to find. And there's other feedback as you guys take a look at it. We appreciate that also.
Where's that located?
It's on the CPP webpage.
Oh,
So go back. Thank you, Dave. Open it up for task force discussion on that, or any other business that task force members wanted to bring up. And I see Judy, their hand raised.
Sorry, it just popped in my head. Are we allowed to score this evaluation?
You have 30 days though.
Oh, I did today. Okay. When we do, I guess I will give comments, and I was thinking we might need more time, but 30 days is not long, but let me provide a couple of initial comments, and then we certainly will do something in writing. And that is, when South Coast comes out with a permit handbook, right? This is a serious document where we're saying this is how we want things done for this process type emission factors, how we calculate emissions, how we look at rule requirements, how we, this is what we're gonna do. And know that we've experienced all of this from Bay Area, who had a handbook and it aged. And it became a really big problem because they had some really old emission factors in there that their staff went, we have to use this. And of course, we're like, the manufacturer says this. And it was like, we don't care what the manufacturer says. It is in our handbook. We will use that number. So I think there has to be some really good clarification up front. You have a disclaimer section. Has to be really clear when and how are the numbers expected to be used in here, because if you hand this to a permit engineer, they're going to go, this is what, and this can be very problematic. And then, of course, it's spelled out right here. I'll say this is kind of low hanging fruit, but when you spelled out your emission factor table, the emission factors are very poorly documented. We do know what the Swedish study is. It's from 1994. It's referred to in AP 42. It is not in AP 42. But that Swedish study is heavily relied upon here, contrary to emission factors that other people have been using in permitting for some years, and it increases the hexavalent chromium emissions 20 times, which is enormously significant. And the NOx emission factors here are very significant and have not been published or really much used before. And even in your own evaluation here, you've indicated we won't need modeling, we won't need offsets. But if you use these emission factors, you will need modeling and you will need offsets, big offsets for this device that you've published. So I think this is the balance of these kinds of things. It's great to put everybody on the same page. It's enormously problematic if it's not right, or it's not well done, or it doesn't provide flexibility for someone to go, well, we have data, we have a source test, we have manufacturer data, we have, something else, so.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Look forward to your comments. If time becomes an issue, please let us know.
Yeah, 30 days is not
Again,
long.
it's trying to,
Yeah.
we do, there was a rulemaking in progress. We didn't want to hold it up anymore. Might as well get it out to utilize for permitting. And then we had a September timeframe in mind just to have the public meeting. So it was trying to make those dates jive, but let us know. We can always adjust.
Yeah, but this is the first one. So to me, it's like really important that this is the template of what is happening.
Sure. Thank you. David.
To echo some of those comments, what's staff going to do with the handbook? Is this going to be the Bible of you will follow it? Or is it a direction to go in? What would the instruction be to staff? And that'll help us comment on the document.
I think with any other document we have this is an initial guidance on what to expect for submittals to follow, right, pre-construction review and follow this, but it does not preclude any case-by-case considerations. Different manufacturers have different equipment, different technologies. With anything there's always those case-by-case considerations that we may not know of when we're making a general document. Yeah.
So this is standardizing that starting point, because I think this was the one category of equipment that was brought to our attention where it was inconsistency within the different permitting teams as to emission factors and assumptions. And so this is our attempt at standardizing that and then that starting point.
Yeah.
having guidance is appreciated. So thank you for the effort.
Right.
Another utilization of our contractors that, we got through PEP. So we're utilizing them well. This is just one of the public facing documents that they developed. So I want to thank the contractor for that. I do want to open it up for public comment. I see Natasha has her hand raised.
Thank you. I first wanted to thank you very much for publishing it. I think it was sorely needed, and I agree. It's wonderful as starting point, but any guidance to allow for better data if available. So this is kind of like default factors. And in all the other programs I'm aware of, if you have a better information, you can always put more source specific information with the explanation. I just had one question. While we are reviewing it and working with it, who would be the good point of contact if we do need help understanding something?
Shannon Lee, Senior Engineering Manager, is here today and will be the point contact on those comments. And we will be posting this on the website we identified here to be able to access. All right.
Just side comment overall, I think it would be wonderful that you start. I don't know if I can be ambitious to suggest monthly, but let's say quarterly Zoom meeting for CPPs with what happened in the last 3 months, what is new and great available.
Okay. Yeah, I think
and answering any questions.
Thank you. We'll take that back and see what our resource impacts are for that. It doesn't have to be complicated, but yeah, let us take that back. We have a lot of public meetings coming up, but we'll talk about it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next up, Rita Loof. Go ahead, Rita.
Yes, thank you. And this is general public comments, yes?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to suggest that the materials be posted on the calendar, as in the materials for this meeting. I know once upon a time they were, but today when I looked on the calendar, the links to the materials themselves, the actual presentation, I couldn't find it from the calendar page. So not sure if you meant to include them or not, but I think it'd be really useful for the public if they were included in the calendar page. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we usually provide the Zoom link and meeting attendance information, and the balance of the information is on our permit streamlining task force, which has a link to it. But thank you for your comment. All right.
Jason, just real quick, I went to the calendar page and it links you to the permit streamlining task force page, and all the information is there. I just found it.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, close that out. And now we can go to a general public comment. Anybody public wishes to comment on anything within the purview of the Permit Streamlining Task Force Subcommittee? Now is the time. Seeing none. I think, all right. We'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for your participation in the meeting, the effort. I know it's a lot of work on everyone's to take time out of your calendars, and thank you very much for coming out in person. And we'll look to schedule our next meeting, but we have a lot of work to do on our side to develop some things. All right, thank you.
Thank you.